Hello, hello, hello. Okay, all right, let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and start the video. Well, hello, students. I am required to show my face during this talk. I'm kind of planning on maybe turning this off maybe several minutes in and then turning it back on at the end. I don't like distracting myself and others with my ugly mug. All right, so let me go ahead and get started. We're going to start out by looking at our classroom, and this is everybody's been in there. I'm taking it. I've got a list of things I want to go through. We are going to spend the last several minutes talking about lab reports because a lot of you have expressed concern about those. So let's go ahead and go through everything else, and then I will talk about lab reports at the end. All right. Well, my name is Dawn Cox, and I will be your instructor this term. I've been teaching this course or similar ones for GMC for, I think, about 15 years. So I'm not trying to brag. I'm just telling you that you have an experienced instructor, and maybe that will make you feel better. There's my email address. I prefer to be contacted via email. If you want to meet like during an office hours situation, I do have office hours, but I really prefer for a student to email me and we can set up a time to meet one-on-one. I think that's better. So there's my introduction. Let's go ahead and talk about the news and announcements. Most of you who were in the class during week 0 probably felt like I was overwhelming you with announcements that go out as emails, but these are pretty important. Each one of these emails that I sent you in week 0 talks about different aspects of the course, like my late policy, the discussions, plagiarism, textbook and tutoring, and finally lab reports, which I'm going to cover extensively today. Each week, I will send out or I post an announcement, which is sent out as an email about the upcoming week, what you're going to be learning that week, and what the expectations are. And then once I've graded everything, I will send out another email telling you your grades are done. Everybody take a look at the feedback, that kind of thing. I usually do my grading for GMC on Monday and Tuesdays. So you can expect pretty quick feedback. And I do try to give good feedback, but if you read your feedback and you have a question, don't hesitate to email me about it and just ask me, what did you mean by this feedback? Or I don't understand why I lost points on this. Can you explain? That kind of thing. I'm happy to do that because I want everybody to understand their grades. All right, so there's the announcements. Let's go back. All right. Next thing I'm going to talk about is stuff in the syllabus. There's a couple of things I want to do in here. As I mentioned, I do have, the first thing you're going to see in the syllabus is my introduction. And I also have an introduction in the introduction section, and it's pretty similar. All right. I do have a video introduction here that you can look at. It's about a year old, so I really need to update that. My stated office hours are Tuesdays and Saturdays. But as I mentioned, I really prefer to have you email me and say, I need to meet with you. When can we do it? And we'll arrange to either meet on Zoom or just talk on the phone, whatever is preferable. All right, so there is that. I want to talk about the course schedule. At the beginning of the term, I go through this area in the syllabus and I put down when everything is due. Okay, now this week only, since the course started on Wednesday, all of your work except for the first post on the discussion board. Excuse my cat. She decided to get up there in the picture. All of these things, your problem set, your quiz, and your lab report are all due on Monday night, the 21st. Your first post for the discussion is due today if you want full credit. So you need to post your first post by tonight. That's this week. And just let me show you that, all of the weeks are given here. The only weeks that are different from the rest of them is week 8 and week 1. So I will talk more about this in a few minutes. Okay, and then the other thing I want to, okay, civil discourse, that's what I want to go. I want to talk about the rubric for the discussion, because a lot of students, after I grade it for the first time, they email me and say, I don't get it. Why did I lose points on that? Well, I'm going to go through this now so everybody understands the rubric. And we have to use this rubric. We're not allowed to add or subtract points. And this rubric is pretty, it's got only 0, 3, and 5 points. So you're going to fall into one of those categories. But there's four categories for the rubric. The first one is peer-to-peer interactions. So you need to post at least 2 replies to peers or me, that counts, as long as their post is substantial. It talks about, something in the class, that kind of thing. If you just respond to a classmate and say, wow, good job, I really enjoyed reading your post, you said this about this, I'm not going to count that as a post because you're not adding anything new to the discussion. So just be aware that good job or I agree does not count. So you're going to get points, according to what you do there. Daily participation is really simple. You have to post over 2 days. So let's say you post your first post on Wednesday, which is the normal time during the term when your first post is due. So you post on Wednesday, then you need to come back and post one other day, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. And, you have to respond to 2 classmates or me. All right, the third category is, in my opinion, should have more points because it's the most important one. What I'm looking at in this one is I'm looking at if you are understanding what you're talking about, or if you're just kind of making stuff up. That happens sometimes. But your post must be 150 words each. And that does not count the references and I don't count the greeting either. Like if your greeting says, hi, Sally, I really enjoyed your post. And then you go on to, talk about, elaborating on some of the material. That introduction and that reference doesn't count in the 150 words. So make sure that you are substantially responding to classmates or me. All right, because all of your posts must be 150 words. All right, so there's that category. And also you need to show understanding. If I ask you a question, I'm always going to respond to your first post, always. So it's a really good idea to check back, because what I'm doing when I ask you a question is I'm trying to probe you a little bit to show your understanding better. So it's a good idea to reply to my questions. Okay, and then the last one's real simple. You responded by Wednesday. This week it's Friday, but every other week it's going to be Wednesday. Your initial post is due on Wednesday. If you post on Wednesday, you get your full credit. If you post on Thursday, you get 3 points. And if you post later than Thursday, you get 0. So if you just wait and post on Sunday, you're going to get 0 points in this category, which, that's a lot of points to be taken off. Okay, so that is everything I wanted to go over in the syllabus. So let's go back to the classroom again. Hang on. And the next thing I'm going to do is go through the resources right here. And I'm just going to kind of overview them for you. The best thing to do is open up this useful link here. You just kind of click on the arrow and it opens that drop-down menu. And a lot of the things that you need are right here. Like, for example, disability services, the library, Moodle help, transcripts, etc. Lots of things in there that you might need at one point or another. So that's a good thing to open up so you've got that handy. And then there's lots of other things here. Help with academic writing. In other words, if you need some help with APA style or something like that, there's information there about that. Okay, and referencing and things like that. You do need to reference your discussion board post. So that's kind of important. Um, and then the library, if you're doing a paper or something, we don't really have any papers per se in this class because you do these lab reports. But, if you want to use get some references for your discussion post or something, you're going to use the library. Here's where the library information is. All right, and then those students, I'm going to talk about the tutoring in a minute, so let's skip that. Those students who believe they have a disability and they've been diagnosed, what you need to do is contact Charles Wells, and both his phone number and his email are here, and he can kind of get you on the path to getting accommodations, which means maybe you're going to get longer on your tests, or you might have an extra day on some assignments, something like that. So, this is there if you need it. And if you suspect that you have a disability, but you've not been diagnosed, then he can also help you with that. So there's his contact information. All right, textbook, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So let's skip over that. Let's see if there's anything else we need to do here. That's about it. All right. Avoiding plagiarism, that's a big one. I did send an email out about that at the beginning of the term or in week 0. Okay, so there is resources. Let's go ahead and go down to, let's see, tutoring. Okay, this is going to be the instructor view for tutoring, so yours is going to look different. But if you scroll down to the bottom, here's what you'll do is you'll click on this live tutoring button, and then it will ask you to fill out a form with some different information about you and other things. And you'll just fill that out. And then, of course, you're going to tell them you need a chemistry tutor because they're not going to stick you in with a writing tutor if you want a chemistry tutor. So you have to give them that information, and then you can get in touch with a tutor if you want to. So that's a really nice feature because it's all online. And I've had some students tell me it's been very helpful when they've gone and used this. All right. Let's continue. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is the introductions. Whoops, sorry about that. My mouse is very touchy. I'm not going to go in there because it's a waste of time because everybody goes in and posts their introduction. But I just want to talk about why these are important to me personally. I'm kind of an old school teacher, and I print out a grade sheet for each student. And I put it at the top. I have a blank area, and then I have a place for me to put every single grade that you get in the course. So that way I can kind of flip through and look at that paper grade sheet, and I can see what your grades are. I don't have to try to go through the grade book, which is pretty tedious, actually. The new grade book that they just created, it's pretty tedious to go through. So I will, after you post your introduction, I will write down everything that you told me about yourself in that blank area on your grade sheet. So if you tell me your major, what your goals are, if you're married, if you have kids, what your animals are, what your job is, what your interests are, that kind of thing. Whatever you tell me, I put it all down on that grade sheet. So that way, if I need to talk to you later on, or you ask a question and want to meet, I can look at your grade sheet and kind of get to know you a little bit. All right, so that's why the introductions are important to me personally. All right, so now textbook. I promised you we would talk about the textbook. There are 2 ways to view the textbook. I recommend the first one here, where you download the PDF to your computer, because that way, if you are you use your internet or something, and you just want to do some reading, you can do that offline. However, if you do the second one, which is web-based, you've got to be online to access the textbook for that one. So I recommend this one, go ahead and download it, get it on your hard drive. You got the textbook there then. And if you wanted to print out some pages or something that you need for reference, you can do that from the PDF file. Okay, that's textbook. All right, lab area. We're going to talk about lab reports in a few minutes, but this lab area here has the lab report instructions, which I'm going to go through the rubric. And then this is a virtual lab tutorial, which you might have gone through in week 0. It just kind of, tells you, and kind of gives you a introduction to what you to expect in your labs. All right. Now, let's see. What else do I want? Oh, next I'm going to take a break from this just for a minute to talk about withdrawals. They currently changed the policy on withdrawals that we used to, after 12 days, we were required to drop a student if they weren't working in the class and submitting assignments. But now we pretty much have one policy. You are to contact me if you want to withdraw. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, have you talked to your advisor about this? Because there are sometimes financial or academic consequences for withdrawing. So, I'm going to ask you, have you done that? And if you say yes, and I really want to withdraw, then I will proceed with that. I'm also probably going to try to convince you to stay in the class by offering help or maybe saying, I can help you get caught up on those 2 assignments you're missing if that's the problem. So withdrawals, you've got to contact me from your GMC email and request the withdrawal. Now, if you are absent from the class for more than 7 days, because I grade on Monday mornings usually, and so I will notice if a student's been missing for the entire week, they didn't turn any assignments in. Well, I will email you and say, is everything okay? Do you need help getting caught up? Are you having some issues at home? Whatever. And I'll try to remind you that the chemistry class is here waiting for you. Because I want to, I don't want to have a lot of withdrawals. I want everybody that's in the class to stay in the class. Okay. So, yes, this is faculty resources. You don't see that. All right, everybody probably has done this, but you have to go through this attendance requirement. All you do is click on this and just answer a few questions, and then you are allowed to move on to unit 1 or week 1. Okay, I wanted just to talk about a couple things in week 1. Obviously, you've got something at the top here. I just skipped it. At the top here, I put one of my personal videos for you to look at. It's all about measurements, significant figures, and dimensional analysis. Dimensional analysis is the basis for most of the math in this class. Most of the math is going to be dimensional analysis. Not all, but a lot of it. So you might want to watch this video because it goes through dimensional analysis in detail and explains it to you. All right. And then you got your resources here, right? Practice problems, videos, that kind of stuff that you can look. And, your reading assignment, obvious, is there too. And then you're going to complete some stuff. Number 1, you're going to complete the discussion, which we call civil discourse forms now. And your first post this week is due on Friday, but every other week is due on Wednesdays. Then this week, you're doing problem set 1, the quiz, and the lab report. Those are all due on this coming Monday at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, I recommend that you start the problem set early in the week, that you also look at the lab report early in the week to see the procedure, to see, kind of view what you're going to be doing, and then you can ask questions if you need to. So please try to start the lab report early in the week. Those people who start the lab report on Sunday, I'm not going to probably be answering a lot of questions because I'm not online all day on Sunday. But it's just a good idea to take a look at it so you know what's going on, and start it as early in the week as you can. All right. One thing I wanted to mention about the laboratories, I was going to do this at the end, but let me do it now because I'm thinking of it. I have a policy. This isn't, I'm very sure nobody else does this, but I have a policy that if you email me whatever you've got done on your lab report by Saturday at noon Eastern time, I will give you some general feedback on your lab report, which means, like for example, if your calculations are wrong, I might say something like, Sally, go take a look at your calculations. You're having some issues with those or whatever. I'm gonna help you a little bit with your lab report. So that's something that I offer, and the students who take advantage of that are the ones who end up at the end of the term getting hundreds on their lab reports. So good, just think about it. You don't have to do it, but think about it. All right. And then the last thing I want to do is go through week 2, the due dates. And week 2, go back to the regular Sunday night due dates, right? The first post for the form is due on Wednesday, and then everything else is due on Sunday nights. That's going to be for the rest of the term except for week 8. I'm not going to discuss week 8 right now because I do another live session in this course in week 7, where I will go over the schedule for week 8. I'll talk about the last 2 lab reports, and I will kind of go over what to expect with the final exam as well. But I'll do that in another live session in week 7. So we'll skip that for now. Okay, so we are ready to start looking at the lab reports now. So let me just get this open. Yeah, lab report instructions. You can download this from the site. Remember I showed you where that was in the lab area? You can download this from there. I probably will attach this to another announcement later in the term or later this week or next week. But here's what you're expected to do. Wait a minute. Let me go back up there for a second. Your lab report needs to be in APA format. Okay. But basically, I'm not real picky about that. I do require you to have a title page and a reference page. And the reference page must be in APA style. I do take off points if it's not. So also your lab report should be double spaced. I'm not really looking at margins and font and that kind of stuff because once you pass your lab report through Turnitin, it destroys some formatting and I can't really tell anyways. So I'm looking for double spacing, a title page and a reference page, and then, minimum amounts of, grammatical and spelling errors and that kind of thing. All right, now you can have 6 sections in your lab report. Number 1 is the title page. All right, everybody knows how to do a title page. It should be in APA format, which means it's centered and down the page a little bit. And then the second category is the introduction. And the introduction is basically where you're going to summarize the background of the lab. The background, if you look at the lab reports procedures, that's where you're going to find the information about the labs. You will see what's called the background there. So summarize the background well. If you have like formulas that you're supposed to be using, include that. Any other kind of preliminary things that you need to know about the lab, put that in there. Also, there are always lab objectives listed in the background. So those should also be in your introduction. The other thing that should be in your introduction is a hypothesis. And a hypothesis is what you have probably heard it called. It's an educated guess. And what does that mean? It means you're not just guessing, you're looking at some information, some data or something, and you're going to make a guess off of that. You're not just off the top of your head making a guess. Let me give you an example of a good hypothesis and a bad one. Let's say you're trying to identify a metal, okay? And you're going to do that by using its density. So a good hypothesis would be something like, all right, let's say you have an unknown and you have 2 known values. All right, so this known is the density is 12.8 grams per milliliter. The other one is something else. And your hypothesis would be If I find the density of the unknown and compare that density to the known values, I can identify my unknown. That would be an excellent hypothesis. A bad hypothesis would be, I predict that unknown A is copper and unknown B is aluminum. All right, that's a bad hypothesis. Why? Because it's a guess. It's not an educated guess. It's a guess. You're just kind of throwing it out there before you do your lab. So that's a really bad hypothesis. You're not going to get many points for that. I'm going to show you the rubric for this in a few minutes here. Okay, so there's what should be in your introduction. The methods and materials section is very simple. Just summarize the procedure. There's a procedure section in your lab report, and you just need to summarize it. You don't need to, copy it or, do it step by step. Oh, I didn't mention this before, but copy and pasting is not allowed in the lab reports. You do have to submit this through Turnitin, and Turnitin will find any copy pasting that goes on. And anything above a 35%, in my opinion, is too high. I'm going to mention that to you in a grade. All right. So this section is just a summary of the procedure. Do not copy and paste. A lot of students are very tempted to just copy and paste the whole procedure and put it in there. You're going to get 0 points for that. So don't do that, please. Okay. The results section. Oh, I don't know why that got big, but oh well, that's nice for everybody. You can see it better. The results section is where you're going to put your data, your calculations, and answer any questions that are in the procedure for the data. All right. So I want to include any tables that are provided for you. So what you're going to do is you're going to put your data in the tables. And then if you have to do a calculation, like let's say this week you're calculating density in your lab report, you would want to show your work below the table for each of your density calculations. Show it carefully, like you would in a math class. Do not put it in paragraph form, please. I can never follow that. I'm a mathematician as well as a chemist, and I like my math to be really clearly math, not like a discussion of math. So please do your calculations like you would in a math class, like step by step. Show them below the tables. And then also, if there is any questions that you're asked during the procedure, then go ahead and answer those questions in this section. In the last, oh no, they moved this lab report to unit 7 or week 7. In week 7, you're going to also have some graphs that you have to include. All right, so there's the results section. Then finally, the discussion is the conclusion. So you're going to, number 1, kind of summarize the lab and any important lab results or data or calculations that are going to help you with your conclusion. You're going to talk about whether your data and calculations supported the hypothesis and whether they supported the lab objectives. You're also going to do things like if you're trying to find the identity of an unknown, that should be in this section. So you say, my unknown A was aluminum, unknown B was whatever, and then explain why. Because their densities were the closest, the unknown density was the closest to aluminum and whatever. So you need to explain it. Then there's other things that they talk about here that you can put in there. I do like to see some applications if you can think of some at the end. I'm not going to count off if you don't do that, but yeah, just, include all of this. I expect your discussion to kind of be something that is a standalone paragraph or 3 paragraphs, something like that, where somebody could read it and they would understand what you did in the lab and what your conclusions were. All right, one other thing I want to mention, each of these sections needs a heading. That's extremely important because I cannot really grade these if I don't know what section you're trying to do. So please put a heading on each of these sections. So for example, at the beginning, you're going to start with the introduction. So you would put introduction, blah, blah, blah. Okay, then heading, methods and materials, etc. All right, and then finally, a reference page. This should, if I was you, I would do a page break. That makes sure your reference goes on on the next page, and it must be in APA format. Okay, so there are the lab report instructions. Now let me talk about the rubric. Here we go. Maybe. There we go. There are 5 categories in the rubric. And again, we are not allowed to add or subtract points. We can only do things in the rubric. So we're stuck with the 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0 points. So the categories are first format. What does that mean? It means, is your paper written in APA style? Do you have a title and a reference page? Is your paper double spaced? Is there a minimum of grammatical and spelling errors and that kind of thing? So if you do it correctly, 4 points. This is an easy one. Easy 4 points if you just do that, because this is nothing scientific. It's just about did you correctly format your paper? All right, the second category is the introduction and methods. So this is going to be, I'm going to grade these together, the introduction section and the methods and materials section. Those should both be summaries of the background of the procedure. So, depending on, I will go through your lab report and put like what I call bubbles, and with information about, what you should have had maybe in your introduction or in your procedure or something. So go through and read the bubbles. And then, because that has valuable feedback. But then I'm going to grade those 2 sections together. And, if you've done everything you were supposed to in those 2 sections, I already went through that, so I'm not going to do it again. Then you get full credit or down, if you just didn't do an introduction or a method material section, then you get 0. All right, next is the hypothesis. Notice that even though the hypothesis is in the introduction section, we have a full category for it because the hypothesis is very important. It's going to set you up for what you're looking for in the lab. If your hypothesis is way off, you're not going to be looking for the thing that you were supposed to be looking for in the lab, correct? So your hypothesis should be, I would really like everybody to say, I hypothesize that, blah, 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 blah. So that I can see what your hypothesis is, because sometimes people just say, this lab is going to blah, 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 do this and this. And it's not clear what your hypothesis is. So please, make it clear by saying I hypothesize, or it is hypothesized. All right, the results section, this is the data, the calculations, all that kind of stuff should go in there. And then finally, the discussion is the conclusion. And I already told you what's supposed to be in that section. So there's the 5 categories for this. That's how you are going to be graded. I'm very diligent using this thing. And that's basically it. I just wanted to mention that I know that some of you are expressing fear of chemistry, and I think most people are fearful of chemistry because of the math. Remember that I told you to look at that video that I posted for you. It's at the very top of Unit 1. It's my methods and my measurement video. Go ahead and watch that because it does go through some of the math in the course, and that should help. But everybody can do this. I know you can. Get help if you need it. Start your assignments early in the week. Do not wait until Sunday, even though they're all due Sunday. That's a really bad idea. Just take, smidges of time that you have during let's say on Monday you work, until 6 o'clock. Well, then when you get the kids in bed, spend half an hour in chemistry, just a little bit every day. So, Monday you might want to take a look at the lab report just to see what you're going to be doing that week. So that's my recommendation for success. And ask questions if you have them. Go for tutoring if you think that will be helpful. But you can do this. Everybody can do this. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and that is it. Let's go back to our Zoom page. Oops, that's not it. There it is. So, no, there it is here, I think, right? No, that's not it either. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. I'm going to stop this in just a second here. So, um, I'm going to go ahead and let's see here. Let's go back if I can. Mm, it's not letting me. All right, never mind. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing now. Oh, and there we go. We're back to the Zoom page now. Um, and I'm going to end this. If anybody has any questions about anything, please email me and I'm happy to answer them. And I'm sorry you had to look at my ugly mug through this whole thing. All right, that's it. I'm going to end.